3 o'clock on this Tuesday afternoon. Welcome aboard the Postgame show alongside Tyler Head.
For the moment.
I'm Jay Phillips. Our good friend Ben Portnoy of the Sports Business Journal is in with us. He used to work for the state newspaper. Now he's one of them big-time national guys. Yeah. Oh, hang on. Let's hit that button right there. Which one is he on, Tyler? The red one.
Just keep pressing them and they'll find one.
Press the red
I believe
one.
we're going to be on 3. There we go.
A little better.
There he is.
You make the same mistake every person does when they come in here is hitting the wrong microphone.
Push the button.
All good.
Well, we were going to have Yuva run the board, and he's like, what do I do? I was like, you just push buttons and slide things.
Well, Yuva's got to move a bunch of crap up to Rhode Island. He's got to get to work on that.
I don't like moving across town, much less anything else. So all the way up I-95. I guess at least it'll be in a truck most of the way.
I was helping a friend move last weekend, and it's and that heat, it's rough. Who needs the gym when you got that?
Were you compensated well?
I was compensated with dinner, so it worked out.
Dinner, okay.
It's all right.
Beer is better.
It was both.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good. But Elijah will be along. In fact, Elijah's walking in now, so he'll be here in just a second. He was down covering Carolina basketball. They're introducing some of the newcomers today. Coach Paris and the boys were down there. We'll get Elijah's take on that. We have day 2 of our greatest moments in Carolina athletics since the turn of the century. We'll get Ben's take on some of those. He covered the Gamecocks for a few years in his career, and I think a few of the things you covered are included in the poll this week, if not today's. We have 4 choices from yesterday. The 2010 baseball championship was a runaway winner yesterday. I think it got about 3/4 of the vote.
That feels right.
I thought so. I didn't know how much it was going to win by, but I figured it would win round 1.
Yeah.
We have not really. This is all round 1 this week. We have 16 choices, 4 winners. They go into the bracket next week. 1 winner. And they'll begin nice prizes, flowers, T-shirts for the team that wins. I'm sure they'll be really excited.
I think they'll be excited, you know, because they haven't been honored enough times. At Columbia
we'll clean out the radio prize closet upstairs. You know, we raid B106's stuff. You know, they have
perfect.
like Celine Dion CDs.
Perfect. Might as well. I mean, look, I think they'll take it. Hey, free prizes are free prizes,
sure.
Right? Like, everyone loves a free prize. Everyone loves a free T-shirt. That's like sports marketing 101, right? People love free stuff.
We got T-shirts. Bill Gunner signs them, and they become really valuable. It's great. Yeah, that's great. No, we're having fun with that, but you can log on to 1075 The Game on Twitter or X and cast your vote. And you got until midnight for day 2, day 3, day 4, Wednesday, Thursday, and again, we'll have a winner crowned next week. Ben's going to hang out with us here for the 3 o'clock hour. Again, Sports Business Journal kind of speaks for itself in terms of what they do, but Ben is covering the business of college athletics these days. And my goodness, it feels like every day you blink and something is different. Friday, we had the 3 settlements filed in front of Judge Wilkin out in California. And now there's a period where she will be able to review those things. Then we get about a 3-month window for objections. And if all goes according to plan, Ben, by the start of next school year, about a year from now, all of these things will be in place. We'll touch on that. We'll get Ben's take on some of the latest things he's hearing behind the scenes on any potential realignment, what might hold it up, what might speed it up. You never know. I know that's kind of an oxymoron, but I feel like sometimes both things can be true. Where are the big prizes? I know Brett McMurphy had some news put out during SEC Media Days that a lot of us believe in the grand scheme, especially if the ACC's grant falls apart, it's the University of North Carolina that becomes the big prize, not Clemson or Florida State. Not to disrespect them, but they aren't maybe as desirable as a big state U like what's in Chapel Hill or even what's in Charlottesville. They seem to be the 2 big ones.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I think that, look, it's a complicated time right now. I would say that, you never say never, but it feels like the waters have calmed, so to speak, for the time being. Now, whether that holds, Lord knows, these things can pick right back up. So it'll be interesting. I think that, certainly North Carolina and Virginia are places that people have circled, and for good reason, right? Great schools, great athletic departments, all of that.
And there's still a lot of people. I believe what you want to believe. I'm not here to tell you how to think. But there's a lot of people out there these days that seem to believe that school has nothing to do with it. And I just wholeheartedly disagree with them based on the people that I have spoken with. School still matters a lot. When you look at the 4 schools that were added into the Big Ten, they all have AAU membership in common. They are all In some form at least. Well, 3 of the 4 are some type of big state U. I know UCLA is not the University of California. That's Berkeley, and they're going to the ACC, but UCLA is, I think, the number 2 rated public school in the country behind Cal. Southern California is a premier private school. They didn't just, with all due respect, they're not adding Fresno State and UNLV to the Big Ten. Right?
Yeah, I think that's fair. No, I think that is a good point, and I think that
they're fine schools, I'm sure.
Well, and I think the point that I've made to a lot of people, and I think it's worth repeating when you talk about, let's just talk about in the context of the SEC, right? Like, if the SEC wanted Clemson and Florida State, one, it probably would have happened already.
I don't disagree.
I think B, or 2, I should say. You look at the footprints, right? And we talk a lot about TV markets and things like that. And I know that is kind of a nebulous thing, and a lot of people kind of look at that and their eyes start to glaze over, and I get it. But the super simple way to explain it is aren't any SEC schools in North Carolina, and there aren't any SEC schools in Virginia.
Right.
There are SEC schools in both South Carolina and Florida.
Right.
Point being, you're kind of stepping into, if you're looking at the map and we're playing this like a risk board, basically, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're adding places that you don't have necessarily. And I think that when people talk about TV markets and the reach and things like that, right? North Carolina brings in the Charlotte market, brings the Charlotte market into play maybe in a way that Clemson doesn't necessarily in quite the same way. And Florida, obviously I think we can all agree that UF does not necessarily want Florida State in the ACC, and Miami for that matter too. So you add all those things together, and that's kind of why I think a lot of people, both in the leagues and around the college sports, kind of circle Virginia and North Carolina as maybe more favorable options for the SEC if they were going to expand.
I completely agree. And there's times when I think that Miami might actually fit the profile of the Big Ten better than Florida State. Now, I did see that Florida State is going to be applying for membership in the AAU, and that's maybe a 2 or 3 year process. So could be. And look, it's a fine school. I'm not here to knock anybody's school. I'm really not.
Yeah.
But school does matter. People just say, it's all about football. No, it's not. I know football drives the television dollars. But in terms of membership in the conference, these presidents and chancellors and their boards do very much care who they're associating with.
The Big Ten in particular is that way. I mean, that's been a thing for the Big Ten for a long time.
The whole time.
And I think that
and people say, what about Nebraska? When Nebraska joined, they were in, and I think Nebraska could get back in. Mm-hmm. So the academic piece of this is real on some level. Now it depends on the league and depends on situations and all that, and I get that. And look, like, ultimately, again, I said that things are calm right now, but I do think that there's something to be said about if whenever the music stops playing and someone actually has to make a decision, we'll see whether the SEC or the Big Ten really want to expand. If they want to expand, we'll see, right? Like, when the guns are drawn and you decide, hey, this is what we're going to do, or the options there, people might make different decisions. But I think for right now, I think it's fair to say that as Brett reported and others have reported, and I think I reported at some point, I think it's safe to say that the SEC and the Big Ten are not interested at the moment. Yeah, and we'll get into some of the more particular whys of that notion here throughout the course of the day. Again, Ben's going to be with us for the 3 o'clock hour. Our buddy Derek Scott, the voice of the Gamecocks, is going to join us in the 4 to talk about some of the historical moments that we've been discussing as part of our poll. And with that in mind, we now bring in Elijah Campbell, fresh from Colonial Life Arena, and a little
in the Coliseum.
Oh, the Coliseum! Yeah, oh, wow, the old building.
That was my first time getting to experience that building.
Did you see the evidence that I was talking about yesterday of where the roof lifted off after that Antonio Grant 3-pointer in 1998?
Yeah, it never connected, never reconnected.
Yeah,
There's like a nice little sliver.
That's why they had to build a new place.
Yeah,
rain was getting in.
I can imagine. Yeah, air conditioning and cooling of that building is just an arm and a leg each month. Goodness gracious, man!
Home of the Columbia Inferno, right?
For a little while.
It's the Inferno now. The roof was lifted. Yeah, I mean, cooling that place off is.
And one day you want a sports business story. One day I'll tell you. I knew one of the owners of the Columbia Inferno, and boy, did he have a story about why they thought they were going to play in the new building, and then how they were told they were not. I'm not going to lie. This was a story I kicked around for a long time, and I never kind of had the time to get to it. Yeah. I think there's a cool story there. There's a story. For a young, enterprising reporter somewhere. Yeah, and, you can't – I never want to speak ill of the dead. Rest in peace, Mike McKee. But in his time as AD, he may have made a few of those people very unhappy. That's all I'll say for now. Again, I'm not trying to be cryptic. That's not today's topic.
You're just scratching the surface.
But I think some of you out there have probably heard those stories before. They're rather widespread. Watching a hockey game in that Coliseum was terrible because it was built for basketball. And hockey arenas, and Elijah, you live in Nashville, or lived in Nashville, and you covered the Preds. You know, hockey arenas are built for hockey. They're much larger. Again, people got to realize a hockey rink is so much bigger than a basketball court. I think a lot of people that have never been to hockey just think, well, isn't it kind of like a basketball court?
It's like double the size.
More like almost triple,
Yeah,
right?
close
to it.
It's
It's a lot bigger.
it's so big.
Just go into Bridgestone Arena if you're ever at the SEC tournament and you look at the basketball court there, stay for like a week, and then go to the next Nashville Predators hockey game and see how much extra space is on the floor.
Yeah.
Hint, there's none. There's absolutely
Right.
no extra space. You go for the basketball tournament, there's so much space to walk around within the perimeter of the floor itself, right? You can walk all over the place. For a hockey game, that ice takes up every square inch of that floor they have available while the seats are.
But that building was built. I mean, there were certain places you couldn't see. It was a smaller rink, and they had like retractable seats for concerts and such, so they had some space. But if you sat behind the nets, chances are pretty good that you might not see the puck go in the net, depending on where you were sitting.
That's what the horn's for, right?
Yeah, you just have to trust the guy down low and the siren going off or whatever. Yeah, and the air horn.
Gotta have the most important job in the building.
Yeah, those are fun, and smoke everywhere. I mean, but nah, that was a long time ago. Good call though, Columbia Inferno. I still have a Columbia Inferno puck.
Oh, yeah.
Collector's item.
Yeah.
Keep it in a case now.
Yeah, no, it just sits on the wall somewhere, but it was fun. So before we hit a break and talk to Ben about a lot of these things, quick synopsis of what happened today down at the Coliseum.
This team will be more athletic. They'll be very different. Time will tell if they're better, but they're going to be more fun to watch.
Okay.
And Nick Pringle, I just got done shaking his hand right before I left, and my right hand hasn't recovered. That man's got some large mittens.
Broke a bone?
With as many bones that are in your hand, there's a couple in here that are not going to be the same.
Nice.
I was not expecting that at all. But in all seriousness, he was a rim roller and finisher, in the 2 to 4 foot area at Alabama. He can play make a little bit.
Yeah.
Him and Colin Murray Boyles on the floor at the same time is going to be a lot of fun. And Jamari Thomas, the Norfolk State transfer to be the new point guard, he'll be a fan favorite within the first 3 weeks of the season.
Okay.
Hypothesis.
All right.
Fans are going to love him.
I love it.
He's got that dog in him.
We'll hear some sound, and again, Derek will join us with not only with thoughts on some previous things that he's done in his time, but some thoughts looking ahead, as today was one of those days for basketball, and we're just 3 days away, of course, from Carolina football starting what I call August camp. When you were on the beat, did you call it fall camp? Just
fall camp.
Yeah, you call it
preseason camp, fall camp.
Okay. See, I can't stand the term fall camp.
That's the thing. I'd say fall camp.
I don't mind in some places.
Right, because you say fall camp and then you go out there in like a t-shirt
No,
and
it's
shorts. And I'd
August.
sweat through my t-shirt and
this is
20 minutes we were out there.
No, it's August in South Carolina, and fall is still a distant memory.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So I cannot, just for the life of me, I cannot call it fall camp. I get it. I just don't do it. Fair?
That's very fair.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll come back.
fall.
Elijah will get you set up for today's poll question, which is now in full swing. A lot of you already participating. Day 2 of 4 that we're voting on some of the best moments in Carolina sports history since the turn of the century. We'll get into that for you. Ben hanging out, talking the business of college athletics. Derek Scott coming up. Get you caught up on what's going on around the Olympics. Braves trade. Big Tuesday planned for you here on the Postgame Show. All right, welcome back in. Post-game show rolling on this Tuesday afternoon. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. Our buddy Ben Portnoy, the Sports Business Journal, is with us here in the studio in the 3 o'clock hour. Lots to get to with him before we do that. And we'll let him comment on some of these things because, again, he covered the Gamecocks for a while. Elijah, day 2 of 4, voting on 16 moments that are amongst the very tops Gamecock sports history so far this century.
That's right. Since the turn of the century. And we'll go ahead and repeat it again. There'll be 4 polls this week. We've already had, I saw, Jay, you replied to a complaint of us not including the 38-0 women's basketball team from this past year, which we will. That's actually tomorrow. But
it took a lot for me to be as kind as I was.
Yes. We are doing
but I'm a
4
nice guy.
Separate polls, hence in the tweet it says poll number 2. So today's nominees for best Gamecock moment in the 21st century: the second College World Series championship against Florida, winning the SEC East at Florida in 2010 in football, beating Florida in the Elite Eight in 2017 to punch the ticket to the only Final Four in men's basketball history here, and then beating number 5 Tennessee and smashing their playoff hopes in 2022. As of right now, with 42.6% of the vote, it's that second College World Series title against Florida. If this result stands, you still have 9 hours left to vote. If this stands, then it will join the first championship in the Whit Merrifield hit in our final poll that will start running next Monday.
Next Monday. So we have 2 more days of this after today.
Correct.
And by then, you think one of the, if not all 3 of the women's titles will be in there?
There's a very good chance.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a very good chance.
Just making sure.
Which only 4 will be in there, so I mean technically not all 3 can make it. And on the Thursday, spoiler, the 2017 title and the 2022 title will be in the same poll. So you'll have to choose which title is your favorite. That's what happens when you win all the damn time. Is you're gonna have to choose which winning is your favorite.
Wow.
Which isn't easy for everybody.
Yeah. That's good. All right, looking forward to it. You covered that Tennessee game.
I did.
Yeah.
That was quite a night.
Yeah.
I remember standing up in that press box, and it was about probably after like I think it was the 3rd or 4th touchdown, and friend of the program, Colin Taylor, and I were like 10 seats down from each other, and we both kind of looked at each other, sort of leaned back in our chairs and looked down at each other and mouthed a few words of like, what the heck is going on here? Right. And there was that was something. I can safely say that no one saw that coming, especially the way they looked the week before against Missouri, or was it 2 weeks before against Missouri? Yeah. It was awful. But yeah, that was quite a night at Williams-Rice. That was something else.
You know, I've said about the second half of Duke. That was part of yesterday's vote. The second half against Duke in 17. Like, where'd that come from? Mm-hmm. Never seen it before. I feel sort of the same way with that Tennessee game. Just where'd that come from?
The thing is like you turn around, you're probably staring 6-6 in the face at that point, right? Tennessee's still in the college football playoff hunt. Probably gets in if they run the table at that point. Like Tennessee was rolling. Hendon Hooker obviously gets hurt in the South Carolina game.
Yeah. But late. I mean, Carolina was already up. Yeah.
It was like the last play, one of the last few possessions. And so, I don't know. I mean, what's the alternate history if South Carolina goes 6-6 here? And I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. And frankly, like, with all reality, like, probably should have won the Notre Dame game in the bowl game. Yeah. Like, kind of kicked that game away, had some chances to put that game away, and kind of let them hang around.
Couldn't stop the run.
Couldn't stop the run, and went from there. But like, I mean, there's a point that the South Carolina gets up 14 in the 3rd quarter. Like, they're probably winning that football game, and they tripped over themselves a few times.
A little bit, yeah. And it was a little bit different that day. No,
great end of the season though. It was really fun to cover, and people forget about the Clemson game almost, which is crazy.
Right.
Like,
I was stuck in traffic on 995 that day. That was a memory. But yeah, sorry. Go vote again. You got a while, and we'll keep you updated throughout the course of the afternoon. Ben is here to talk to business and college sports with us. Oh, I want to get back in since we already started a little bit at the top of the show on the realignment issue. Then we'll come in around with the settlement and some of the ways that schools are going to spend their money. But when it comes to this now, I know one of the things that Greg Sankey said at SEC Media Days, 16 is our today, 16 is our tomorrow. And you mentioned that the waters have calmed, and I would say for the Big Ten as well. I do believe they need to get used to life like this. What's it going to look like? I've always been kind of baffled at those who say as soon as Clemson or FSU can get out, they're going to the SEC or whatever. I was like, well, we just got to this point. You've got to find a way to take a deep breath, right?
Well, the good thing is no one in college athletics has ever lied in front of a microphone, right? But no, I think that, I think you're right. I think your point is correct, is that, look, a lot of these leagues, and, I talked to, Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark about this a couple weeks ago in Vegas, and he said kind of the same thing when I asked him, do you feel like you're going to expand beyond where you're at? And he said, look, we're focused on folding in the teams we've got. And the same thing applies for the SEC, same thing applies for the Big 10. And frankly, the same thing applies for the ACC as well. So I think that when you look at expansion, the important thing to remember here is, and the ACC is a little bit of a different situation, right, where we're not talking about a media rights deal that is up, and it kind of is, I guess, if we want to, I can get to that in a second. But most of these changes come when conference media rights deals are up, right? Yeah. The Big 12 has just signed their deal. SEC just signed their deal. Big 10 just signed their deal.
Right.
Like
and the Pac-12's was expiring
when everything happened.
Yeah.
Now, the ACC, for what it's worth, and the court documents, we found this out, where everyone thought it was through 2036. Court documents actually show that ESPN has to decide whether or not to re-up by February of this year, 2025. I spoke with Jim Phillips, commissioner of the ACC, last week, and he told me that things are moving along and they're plugging along and they feel like they're in a pretty good place. Just kind of have to go through the motions, for lack of a better term there. But, and if the ESPN does pick up that option, then the ACC is pretty much locked in through 2036, at least from a media rights perspective. So
has there been any inkling that you've gotten from anybody that ESPN is in any way wavering at all?
I would say, look, again, kind of the never say never thing. I would say there's a couple of things, but I think that look at ESPN, and under sort of new leadership with Jimmy Pitaro and some other stuff, they've been a little bit more judicious about how they're spending money. They're not, the media rights market has changed a lot, and they're being a little more, I would say, maybe tightening the purse strings isn't exactly right, because they're still spending, billions of dollars, but, they're being a little more judicious about what they spend money on.
And that's coming from Burbank, right? I mean, right. Disney stock has been popped.
Yeah, and that's everywhere, right? Yeah. Like that's the company as a whole, but so that's part of it. So there's always that thought of like, hey, if they can save some money here and there. Yeah. The flip side of that, though, is that if you look at, if you're ESPN and you're going to say, hey, we're going to have ACC Network and the ACC and all that kind of is entailed in those media rights deals, right? Not to say you're getting a sweetheart deal, but you kind of are, in the sense of, like, if you open up this negotiation and let's say ESPN turns this down and it turns into a, hey, the ACC rights are going to go to market in 2027, I think is what it would be.
Yeah, if they don't do it,
it would expire in 2027. Right. But they have to decide whether to re-up 2 years ahead of that. Right. If that's the case, and let's say we turn into a Pac-12 situation where you're basically saying either you sign a deal or you're screwed, then if you're ESPN and you're saying, hey, we're actually going to keep the ACC, you're probably going to end up spending more money for it than you are right now because of what was negotiated a decade ago. And so I think that's a long-winded way of saying, like, it probably behooves ESPN financially to keep it as is. Now, if Florida State and Clemson leave the league, that changes the dynamics, that changes the value of the package, things like that. I get it. Like, this is really in the weeds for a lot of people, and I get that. But I think that changes sort of the sweetener, right? Like, if you're selling an entity and you take the two best pieces of it and ship them off somewhere else, what's left is not worth the same amount. Right. So I think that's where this becomes a little bit more of a complicated endeavor. But realistically, if Clemson and Florida State haven't made a move to leave the league by February of 25, like, not to put them on the clock, because I don't think that's necessarily exactly what's happening here. There is something to be said for that.
I mean, they still have 2 weeks-ish if they feel, and they say they're probably not gonna, but, at this
folks I've spoken to with the ACC, with Clemson and Florida State have all echoed the same thing, that there's not really an expectation that's going to happen. Now, again, it's college sports. Things change.
Well, you better know where you're going to land, and I think that's the thing. They don't know where they're going to go yet.
That's the problem, right? Like, and that's been my problem with the whole thing from the start, is like, and I've had people in the SEC tell me for a year and a half that they weren't sure, that the SEC wasn't necessarily interested. Now, things change again when, kind of what I said before, is like gun to your head and you have to make a decision. People might change, but if you're going to leave the ACC, where are you going to go? And is the Big Ten a better option? I mean, financially maybe, but like competitively, like, do you want to go be let's use Clemson as a good example, right? Like, Clemson's in a kind of a weird spot right now with coming off the highs of the titles and all of that. And I think a lot of Clemson fans would agree that things have been a little shaky the last couple of years. But if you're kind of banking on, I don't know, for lack of a better term, selling high, basically, like if you're an investor, Clemson stock is probably still pretty high, even if it's taken a little bit of a hit in the last couple of years. Another couple of years where Clemson's puttering around kind of somewhere between 8-9 wins. Does that sort of those titles shrink into the background a little bit? You're probably not as fancy and as shiny an object in the realignment carousel. Like, that's why, like, if you're Clemson, like, you're incentivized to get this thing done quickly. And I think that's why you've seen some of the legal things and all of that. And I think that's at least some of the thinking is, again, kind of sell high on this thing if you can.
More with Ben Portnoy, Sports Business Journal, throughout the course of the afternoon as we talk the rapidly evolving landscape of college athletics. You're listening to the Postgame Show. We are talking the business of college athletics with our buddy Ben Portnoy, who you all remember as being on the beat covering the Gamecocks for the state for a few years and has been working for the SBJ, the Sports Business Journal, for the last couple of years and still makes his home in here in Columbia. So that's good. And glad he is here talking with us. Hit your microphone there, sir, so we can get you back on. There you go.
There we go.
Good stuff.
We're back.
All right, so we talk about potential realignment and some of those things. Let's get in now to the settlement that was filed on Friday. A guy I'm sure you probably have followed and seen, Tony Altimore, puts a lot of good stuff out about how money is spent and percentages and things like that. I'm going to throw out a math stat that I did a few months ago. Elijah knows where I'm going to go with this. I've been using it a lot of late, but I want your take on this. So, and I use when Carolina and Arkansas joined the SEC because that's when they went to a championship game, added a revenue maker, and at least for locals, and you know, that was when expansion kind of started kicking off, right? Then, Ben, there were 12 schools in the SEC. In 1992, those 12 schools shared a combined $27 million in $92. Today, that'd be $60 million. So $5 million per school if you divvy it up today. Now, 14 schools all make 10 times plus that amount. And there's a share for the conference. So in other words, inflation's gone up about 100% since then. And revenues just into the Southeastern Conference, I won't speak for other leagues, have gone up more than 1,000%. So the truth is they have the money. And we know that, look, athletes get a lot. I understand that. But I am also all for NIL and other things. We hear a lot of, well, I might have to cut this, might have to cut that. Yeah, and I'm like, but why? You have the money. So am I right? I mean, when you talk again, you've been at a lot of these meetings, and you've been beyond just conference meetings. You've been at a lot of other symposiums and places where they're talking about this. Do they have the money?
It's a good question. I would say my take on most of this is I should have paid closer attention in math class, but you know.
Oh, believe me, I'm not good at math, but when I need to go do math for the show, then I'm really going to make sure I'm right about it.
Yeah, all my buddies who were business majors had the right idea, but I would say this. Look, I think that it's going to be super interesting. I think that if we're talking about in the context of the House settlement, the quote I come back to a lot that I think carries a lot of weight too is, Texas A&M AD Trev Alberts, and I'm pretty sure I've said this on this show probably before, but when I was in spring meetings in Destin earlier this year, Trev said, college athletics doesn't have a money problem, we have a spending problem.
Right.
And the reality is you spend money on a lot of stuff that you don't necessarily need. It's all these, extra toys and gizmos and sleeping pods and things like that, right? Like college athletics for years and years has just spent because you had to keep up, right? And that was the business model. Like the business model was fundamentally, if we make $100 million, we're going to spend $100 million. Like it was not designed to quote unquote, like literally like exist in the green. Like you weren't there to exist and make money, right? It was operated more like a nonprofit, frankly.
Yeah, it was.
Now, the difference is now you operate in a system that adds a huge budget line onto your ledger in revenue sharing. I think that, as we know, existing in the league that South Carolina in particular does, most schools for competitive reasons are going to, in the context of this House settlement, right, they're going to set a cap and basically say, hey, 22%, but to use a round number, let's say up to $20 million. Right. It'll be a little bit more than that, but for the sake of this conversation, let's call it $20 million. Hey, every school, congrats, you're allowed to pay your athletes of the money you make from ticket sales, media rights, etc., using this formula that they've created, that you can spend up to $20 million and give it directly to your athletes. Now, whether that's split 50-50 because of Title IX concerns, whether it goes, 80 versus market value, where it goes just to, the people who are making the money, which in this case is generally football and basketball. We'll see. That's a separate conversation. But most schools, I think, in the SEC, in the Big 10, in the Big 12, probably, in the ACC, probably as well, competitively for the schools you're recruiting against, you're probably going to have to hit that mark or come close to it and be in the ballpark. Like if you're spending, if the difference between $18 and $20 million, not huge. If you're a Power 4 school and you're only spending $10 million, that's a bigger issue, right? So I say that to say of like, schools are being pressed to make changes and look at things differently, but I think they're looking at things frankly, it's harder to cut sports, I think, than it is to find new ways to bring in revenue. And I think that's the biggest difference. And I kind of hate the metaphor of like people saying that college sports need to be professional sports, because that's not exactly right. But I do think, and the thing I say a lot, and I think it's valid, is college sports doesn't need to be professional sports. But what college sports needs to do is think more professionally about the ways that they try to make money. And I think that if you apply some of the things that professional sports do, because look, like college sports are different, right? There's an academic piece, there's state money coming in, things like that, right? Like there's pieces to this that is very different from the privatized version of what professional sports are. But if college sports can think about ways to make money through different sponsorships and sticking a jersey patch on, things like that, or on the field, right? Those are with things that for years were like taboo in college sports because it wasn't about making money. It was about the student athlete experience and all these other things. But like are really simple things that don't take away from the game. They don't change the actual playing of the contest, right? The actual game at hand. Yeah, it might look a little different because traditionalists and everyone else will say, hey, it's college sports, that shouldn't exist. But like, look, the money's there. Like these programs are making $100 million a year. Like the money is there. These are multi-million, multi-billion-dollar operations if you look at college football as a whole. I think that, if you're going to do that, like, I think, again, like there are things you can do to make more money in ways that maybe you haven't done before, and I think that's ultimately.
Well, I just say to fans, and Elijah knows where I've said you can't have it both ways, and I don't mean that. I mean, I'm talking fans coast to coast, border to border, not anybody local. To be specific, you can't say don't ask me to give more to NIL. Oh, I don't want jersey patches. Oh, I don't want helmet stickers. Oh, I don't want something on the chest of a basketball player or anything like that. I'm like, well, again, you can't have it both ways. Are we close to that? I mean, look, it's allowed, and yet I've not heard anybody in the SEC anywhere else. And you've been around to some of these meetings. Are we going to see any of this season, this school year?
It's coming. We'll see whether it's this year or whether it's next year. I think.
Why wait?
That's the thing. I think that this is an interesting piece, and someone told me this recently, and I think it's a good way to explain this, is that when you look at college sports as an enterprise to basically sell things, right? Like if you're talking about, hey, we're University of South Carolina, and we're going to try and monetize the football team in a better way. We want to make more money off the football team. It's not that it's that college athletics doesn't have an inventory problem. It's like there's lots of things that you can sell, right? Billboards, ribbon boards, an advertisement on the stadium, a jersey patch, things like that, right? Like the inventory, the things that you can sell to a sponsor are there. It's just about finding the right sponsor to do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference, right, with the NFL, right? You slap a AT&T logo on the Cowboys stadium. Yeah, that's probably worth whatever. $200 million. I'm making up a number. But right? Like it's probably not quite the same at South Carolina. I get that. But so you have to there's this funny needle that you're kind of trying to thread where it's not necessarily free money, right? Like where you just stick an Under Armour logo on the field at South Carolina, and that's $4 million that Under Armour's going to pay you. Like it's not necessarily that simple. So you're trying to thread a needle of like, what's your market value? What are you worth? And what's the company that's actually willing to spend the money? Because
one of the things I'm intrigued by too, I got about a minute here, but one of the things I'm intrigued by is that the NCAA said you can sell it game by game. With all due respect, Carolina, I know Carolina goes to Nashville this year, but if Vandy comes into town, it's not going to be as big a deal as if Georgia comes to town.
No.
So, I mean, and
there's a lot of schools that are looking at that, right? Like that are saying like, hey, if we stagger this and we angle it more toward like, hey, big games are worth whatever, $200,000 as opposed to a game against.
Well, if you're on at 3:30 on over-the-air network as opposed to 4:00 on the SEC network
against an FCS team, like the actual worth of that sponsorship is probably less. And so, to your point,
that's why I'd be looking at it. And look, these days you just get some green spray paint, spray over the first one, and you put the second one down.
Grounds crews are good with what they do.
Yeah,
it's doable.
I got one more big question for you in terms of what maybe is coming next that we're not thinking about in terms of some of the things that you've learned. Ben Portnoy with us for a few more minutes. This is the Postgame Show. Welcome back. Sorry, I was going to do my Barry White thing there, but I don't want to freak Ben out. He's not used to it.
Oh
Yeah. It's the post.
That was more Kool-Aid, man.
Yeah. Sports
Barry
Business Journal After Dark with Ben Portnoy.
It's turning into HBO over
Yeah,
here.
something like that. I'll be careful. All right,
Cinemax.
I only got like 5 minutes left here for you. So you've been at all of these conference media days so far this year. You go to a lot of other NCAA meetings. Again, you're always somewhere: Vegas, Phoenix, Dallas. It's great.
I live in Columbia. It's sort of in name only.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, I mean, you just follow Ben on Twitter. You're like, oh, where's Ben today? It's like, where's Waldo? But what are we as college sports fans? And I know, look, we're all getting ready to start playing football again, and it'll be back to sports. But what's something maybe that we're not thinking about that's on your horizon? What's something coming down the pipeline that you think we need to be paying attention to?
Ooh, how much time you got? No, that's a good question. You know, I think there's a couple of things. I think the House case is a big one, obviously, and I think it's I mean, that's the lingering thing here, right, of like what's going to happen there. But I think the piece of that, you know, maybe hasn't been sorted out yet is that this probably isn't going to stop legal challenges. Like, there's a lot of pieces of this House case settlement that either A, the judge isn't going to sign off on, or B, like, will probably be challenged in court by someone somewhere. So, like,
and there's going to be a 105-day period once she signs off. You get 105 days to object. Somebody's going to object to something.
Probably within 48 hours.
Yeah.
So it's not, you know, there are people circling. So that's something. I think, you know, a piece to this enterprise that I think that's in an interesting place is multimedia rights and some of these third parties that help sell sponsorships for universities. Learfield's a good example. Playfly Sports. Those are some of the companies that are in the big states. Learfield obviously works with South Carolina and has, you know, worked with others in the past. A number of institutions.
Yeah, they got a lot. They got
those
a big
are
portfolio.
Those are companies that, like, are there worlds where some of the universities bring some of that in-house and try to hire sales staff themselves and look at some things of, like, trying to kind of what I was saying before, like, monetize in a bigger way? Because a lot of, you know, for the average fan and sort of why this matters, like, company A basically guarantees you and says, hey, we're going to do $10 million in sales. And then after that, we'll split things 60-40 for every dollar we spend or make, whatever, give or take. You know, could schools bring that in-house and say, hey, why are we giving anyone a cut? Let's just do this ourselves. Now, there's a lot of overhead and there's a lot of issues there. But, you know, that's a conversation that people are having around college sports, and it's kind of an interesting sort of nugget, more on the like sort of capital B business side of things, but is something that I think is interesting. And again, like, I think the realignment and the legal cases involving Florida State and Clemson are still out there. What happens with the ACC? Media rights deal, does ESPN re-up that? I mean, February is not that far away. We got a full football season between now and then, but it is, there's going to be some stuff.
But there has to be a date that's circled. No, there's no question on it.
Yeah, I mean, that's something being worked out. So I think that's a wait and see game, but I think people need to pay attention to it because realistically, like, if that gets re-upped, you're gonna be in a good spot, but it changes things if not.
So, okay, I know this is going from business to politics, and I've got like maybe 2 minutes here for you, but how much of this House settlement do you think plays into what schools want when it comes to congressional help?
Schools definitely still want congressional help. An important piece, no piece of this House settlement is contingent on federal legislation.
Right.
So they don't have to pass a law for this settlement to go into action, which that's a big piece.
But does that soothe Congress's mind on, like, now there's, okay, let's see what you...
Yeah, the idea is, hey, if we pass the settlement, it shows Congress that we're serious about changing some things about the way we act. But the employment, that's probably the biggest thing that I think people probably aren't paying attention to, or the average fan probably doesn't really think a lot about is the employment status of whether you constitute athletes as employees. That is not resolved by this settlement, and it's a huge issue. You know, I've spent a lot of time writing about it, frankly, in the last year. There's a lot of people still working on it because, you know, the 10-second version is, hey, if you make an athlete an employee, that means they're qualified for workers' comp, health insurance, all those things. And that's a more huge cost to universities.
And then they can be fired, right?
And they can be fired,
the flip side.
right? Like, and like, it goes both ways, right? Kids get run out of town all the time here still, but like, but it's a different dynamic. And I think that is a huge thing that is not resolved. It will not be resolved by the House case and would need federal legislation, to your point.
Yeah. I don't envy some of these folks, man.
Why anyone wants to get into college sports right now?
But
I guess this is what we signed up for.
What
right?
but at the same time, one of the things that we've said, again, you go to the 9-0 Supreme Court case. You have been breaking federal law for decade upon decade upon decade, and now this is the most massive overcorrection we've ever seen. But it's either this. The status quo is dead.
Well, it's like when people complain about athletes getting paid. Like, guys, Bear Bryant got in trouble for paying players at A&M in like the 50s. This is not a new issue,
well,
right? Like, we're just calling it. We're just calling it something different, and it's more out there. It's more transparent.
Right. What I remind people is that the reason there's an NCAA is because people were doing that kind of. They're like, we can't have this.
It's been happening forever.
Yeah.
We're just not talking about McDonald's bags anymore.
Exactly. Thank you. There's that. Good to see you. We could just scratch the surface. So we'll do this again soon enough. Where are you off to next?
TBD. I'm scheduling out, but I got some games circled. So
Well, just
we'll see.
go play some golf.
I do need to play some golf this week.
Just get out on the course for a bit. He's been Portnoy B, Portnoy15 to follow on Twitter. Poll updates, Olympic updates, a lot coming for you. Plus Derek Scott in the next hour.
Enjoy the Razorback Nuggies.
4 o'clock on this Tuesday afternoon. Welcome back in. It's the postgame show alongside Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Thanks again to our buddy Ben Portnoy for joining us, hanging out. Just talking about a few other things here before we came back on the air. We'll get him in here again soon. I could do a week of shows.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah.
I need the review of the Razorback Nuggets.
If you haven't heard, Tyson, of course, based up there in Northwest Arkansas, is now, that's not a joke. I tweeted it out today. They are making Razorback nuggets. It's your basic Tyson, chicken nugget that the kids love. But in the shape, the little Arkansas, like Razorback on the side of the helmet. So no word from Tyson at this point as to whether or not other mascots will be shaped into nuggets.
The Gamecock would be really difficult, even though it would be the most fitting because it is a chicken.
It's chicken. And if you're wondering, because it's funny. Before I saw it, I thought to myself, I wonder if they'll put Woo Pig Suey on the bag, and then I looked more closely.
Oh, did you find the WPS?
Oh, no, it says Woo Pig Suey on like where you rip the bag apart.
And you can't rip the bag open without yelling it really loud. That's actually part of the instructions on the back, right next to the oven instructions, the microwave instructions, and now the air fryer instructions. They all lead off with yell, Woo Pig Suey, the minute you rip open the seal.
What kind of nightmares do you think Bobby Petrino had when he went back as OC this year to that just god-awful press conference when he was announced as their head coach? Like, having to do that again. Does he wake up going, I don't want to do that?
No, I think he wakes up being like, suckers, I'm back. You can't get rid of me. Fools. Fools. John Calipari, however, I guarantee you the first time he had to call the Hogs, immediately regretted going.
Probably so.
Coaching Arkansas was great in theory, and now you got to talk to pigs, brother. You're not in Lexington, Kentucky anymore.
No. Horse country's different. Horses and bourbon.
Yeah, it's a little. You don't have to call those.
No.
They do the work on their own.
They do.
You didn't have to summon any farm animals.
No, the horses. In fact, those really good horses, they'll just come when they feel like it. Like, hey, I'm busy.
And they'll win you money.
Yeah, I'll let you know.
I'll let you know when I'm ready.
Yeah. 803-404-6100 to be a part of the program today. If you want to chime in on anything you just heard with Ben, please do. And we've got our poll question today. So let's revisit that.
Yes.
Day 2 of 4. Best moments, Gamecock sports since the turn of the century.
We are 337 votes in, and almost half, 42.4%, are voting for the second College World Series title against Florida in what was one of the more dominant postseason runs in college baseball history. Still one of, only 4 teams, I think, to go undefeated in the college baseball playoffs in the modern format.
Yeah, not many. And the winning streak was very impressive in the tournament overall, not just in Omaha.
Yeah.
Because they lost that first game in Omaha in 2010. Yep. And then didn't lose again. Then didn't lose at all in the tournament in 2011. And didn't lose until the College World Series in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that part of a remarkable run.
Yeah.
But that second championship against Florida is at 42.4% in second, now comfortably in second, winning the SEC East at Florida in 2010 and what will be South Carolina's only SEC East title, no more divisions. So that will be the only one in program history.
God, you know what? Until right now, I haven't thought about that in that context. I knew there was no more divisions, but I have not put that particular 2 and 2 together.
That now the total of division titles you've won is now permanently frozen.
I have not. Yeah. Honest to God, I've just not thought about it until
That feeling of permanence does feel a little weird when it actually kicks in the first time.
Yeah.
But that's it. That's the truth. That is the only SEC East title. Hopefully not the only SEC championship game appearance, but it will be the only SEC
got
East
2.
Within their first 2 years of joining the conference.
2 of the first 3, man.
2 of the first 3.
Yeah.
Disgusting.
Crazy.
I'm ill.
Pinkle. He could. Yeah,
that guy could coach,
he
man.
He could coach. They were pretty good.
When you think underrated SEC coaches in the history
and
of
Big
the
12
sport,
coaches. I mean, he brought. It's weird. They had a down year, but then he quickly kind of revamped it. He recruited Texas really well. He
and that's
really,
part of the Big 12 roots right there. Because Texas was, I mean, and also people I think underestimate how much talent's in the St. Louis area, like the St. Louis metro area. It is a wealth of talent in a multitude of sports. I mean, dude,
it's a big city. It's a great sports town.
they just produced two of the most important players on championship teams in different sports professionally this year with Jason Tatum and Matthew Tkachuk.
Yeah.
They're both from St. Louis.
Wow.
Like that place cranks out a lot of talent, and Missouri historically has recruited that very well.
Yeah. No, and again, they're doing all right with Eli right now too. So, but it is just weird. It's just weird.
Still, I mean, it's been over a decade now, and it's never going to feel correct that they're in the SEC.
I don't
Never will.
disagree.
Never will to me. It's never fit quite right for me personally.
And so much of that school actually is very Big Ten.
Yeah,
Not even old Big 8 or Big 12. I mean, they're AAU. It's a big school.
great journalism school.
Yeah. They got big cities and
Them in Northwestern,
yeah.
a little more alike than you might think.
But anyway, I'm not advocating for Missouri to go to the Big Ten or leave the Southeastern Conference. I don't care. It's not my call.
They can do whatever the hell they want.
Yeah, whatever you want to do.
You've already invaded my space, man.
That's right.
You're here now. You might as well make it messy.
Anyway, I'm sorry I cut you off. That was in second place, winning the SEC East.
How rude. Third, 16.9% is the win against Florida in the Elite Eight of the 2017 men's NCAA basketball tournament. That, to this day, the only Final Four appearance in program history. And then at 12.8%, pulling up the rear here, beating number 5 Tennessee in 2022 off the back of 6 touchdown passes from one Spencer Rattler.
Today is tighter. Yesterday, I think the first College World Series title had close to, 70? What was the final, like 70?
73%.
Okay, yeah.
Is what it ended up being.
And then, so today it's a little tighter. And like I said, 27.9 as we speak, winning the SEC East. That was a big deal. That was a big deal. And that team with the bowl loss ended up losing 5 games. They were 9-5.
Yeah.
But you lost to Cam twice. But that game at Florida was, Marcus just
40 carries.
it just makes you realize how
40
special
times.
he was. It was just so hard to bring him down. And the whole what could have been, which is a lot of, I hate to say, a lot of South Carolina sports thoughts turn to what could have been kind of a thing, at least in my lifetime. And I've been around a while now. Mm-hmm. But that's one of them. But that was a big day. And did he have like 210 yards?
I think I might have been 216.
Okay.
It was definitely north of 200, and I believe it was 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I recorded the voiceover like 2 days ago.
Right.
My brain has already wiped out a lot of it.
No, that's cool.
I do remember watching the game, though. I do remember watching the game and being like, they cannot stop the run. Florida is just getting gashed. And it was significant because Steve Spurrier won an SEC East title at Florida.
Yeah.
I think that also carries a little extra juice to it. Knowing who Steve Spurrier is and what he meant to that program. And for him to come over here and then reach a height this program's never seen while doing it at his old employer and what's historically one of the toughest places to play, regardless of how good Florida is kind of the cherry on top.
What's funny, though, is I imagine, like he talked about, look, that was a big deal to him. There's no question. But I just remember, I think it was 2001 when Florida came here. And if I'm wrong, y'all correct me, but I'm pretty sure it was 2001. Florida and Carolina actually also had a game in the regular season that would decide the East. And, I think it was 2001. And Carolina did a blackout, and Florida just mopped the floor with them because they were just that good. And I remember in the postgame, one of his receivers was like, "Coach, they made it easy to see the ball," and Steve kind of reveled in that. But there was a big atmosphere around that game. So there were actually a couple of times when Carolina and Florida, technically played for the East. But I'm sure that was, what Marcus meant to him, what Marcus meant to the program. I think, Coach will tell you when they got Marcus Lattimore. Because they had gotten Gilmore and Alshon the year prior. But when they got Marcus, it opened up so many other doors. And I don't even know that – I think Steve knew Marcus was going to be special and important. I don't know if he realized how good. And then when he went down, because I remember he got hurt that year in the Peach Bowl against Florida State and had to come out. I remember he got banged up a little bit against Kentucky that 2010 season, after the Alabama win. And when Marcus got banged up, Carolina just lost its way. That's how important he was. You don't always remember that, but he, when he could not go, and then they picked it up a little bit, obviously with more talent when he got hurt in 11 and 12. But that 2010 season, there were a few instances there where you saw how great he was, and you saw how valuable he was. Maybe so, you don't know what you got till it's gone, kind of a situation sometimes too. We'll keep voting. They got till about midnight ish.
Yep. So about midnight, there is, or at least it tells me right here, 8 hours left.
Okay, good stuff. And a little bit later on, we'll give you a preview of the 4 events that you'll be voting on tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, the women's national titles, plural, are all going to be up for grabs in the next 8 choices over the next 2 days.
Certainly, yes. Look, when you have 2 major sports win a combined 5 championships and you're running 4 different polls, you kind of want to spread them out to seed it as well as possible. And the baseball were the first 2, and we're going to have to choose in between the women because they've won too many. So they've won so much. Dawn has won so much here that we are going to make you choose between women's titles on Thursday. That's going to be in Thursdays.
All right.
Spoiler.
Okay.
You'll be choosing between the 2 women's titles, beating Clemson in 2022, and the DJ Swearinger hit against Clemson, which encapsulates the run of 5 straight W's against that one school north of here.
Real quick, let's get to Patrick, who wants to weigh in on that 0-1 game. He is up next. Hey, Patrick.
Hey, Jay. I was at that game, and I think I was also at the 97 game, but I remember both of those games very well because they were blackouts. But the 2001 games, it was so cold. I mean, it was like freezing and we got humiliated in that game, like 63-14. But then I could be thinking that was also the 97 game, but it was so cold. I mean, even wearing a couple blankets, it was freezing that I had to leave the game early. And it was tremendous for us.
I just heard. Thank you, Patrick. I'll
54-17.
Yeah, I'll say it was. I don't know if it was quite that bad, but it was bad. And what I remember is how electric the atmosphere was pregame. There was a real palpable sense of opportunity because that was a good Carolina football team. That team won 9 games that year, including the bowl. But that was a good team.
That was the year, yeah. And then Florida had to play Tennessee in December that year because of 9/11. And that was the year they had to move that to the end. And if South Carolina would have won that game and Florida beats Tennessee, deuces.
Yeah.
South Carolina would have multiple SEC East.
Yeah, so there was a real opportunity. But that Florida team was very good. But they did. I remember the post game was, hey, coach, they made it easy. I could see the ball all night. And I've never I'm okay with some kitschy things, and a lot of schools do it. So again, this isn't about any, but I get, you know what I mean? Like sometimes I'm like, let's not overthink it. Don't, and I guess we've probably had a blackout since then. I can't remember.
These do blackouts all the time, and I think the kids see the ball the exact same. Yeah. I think that's some grade A bleep talking right there.
It could be.
It's good. I mean, they learned from the best.
Yeah,
and that was the guy who was coaching the team.
That's fair.
Has talked bleep like no one else has ever done it.
No, don't say that. It's not true.
You've never.
Derek Scott coming up in a bit. Elijah was covering a little men's basketball media opportunity today. We'll get his thoughts on what he saw. Derek will weigh in on some of the things in our poll question. And it's been a big day for the U.S. at the Olympics. That and more as the postgame show rolls on.
I talk all the time about how my friends Paul Grant and Shaylin over at Columbia Seeker for Weight Loss have been fantastic coaches for me in terms of my weight loss journey and being able to keep off the weight that I have lost. But they're approaching a pretty important anniversary. They've been in town for almost a full year now in their new offices for almost a year. And look, they have helped so many people like me burn fat more naturally and do it with the comfort of their own lifestyle, being able to work with them one-on-one and give you coaching that is really hard to get anywhere else, give you the tools that's really hard to get anywhere else. And the results work not just for me. I'm just one of many cases over at Columbia Seeker for Weight Loss where people have achieved weight loss goals and have learned the secret to losing up to a pound of unhealthy fat per day. And there are plenty of success stories. If it interests you, give them a call. Like a lot of us, 803-824-4210. Again, 803-824-4210. ColumbiaSeekerForWeightLoss.com. Results may vary.
Twenty minutes after 4 o'clock Tuesday afternoon. Welcome back into the postgame show. Jay and Elijah with you. The ultimate season ticket giveaway is back. It's your chance to win season tickets to all Carolina home football, baseball, men's and women's basketball games. It's brought to you by the Men's Clinic. Keep listening for more details, and you can look for the ultimate season ticket giveaway graphic on the homepage of the website, 1075thegame.com. learn more on how you can win that very cool prize.
That's one of the coolest prizes we give out. We give out a lot of really cool prizes.
That's probably right up there at the top. Trying to think of something better. I mean, we used to do that, win a day with Bill Gunner, but then the lawyers got involved for that one thing that Bill did, and
that one thing we can't talk about.
That went away.
We can't bring that up anymore.
Gunner.
We can't say that on air.
Yeah.
Innocent till proven guilty, or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. He was guilty.
I think I've already said too much. I'm getting a call from my lawyer. This isn't good. I done goofed.
Check it out, 1075thegame.com. So Elijah was down at the Coliseum, not the Colonial Life Arena, for a little meet and greet with some of the newcomers.
Yeah.
Coach Paris and others. And Derek is going to join us in just a little bit to talk more about some of what he's learning and also some of the historical stuff we're doing with the poll question. But some early vibes, sir?
Yeah, definitely the biggest takeaway is that this team is going to be way more athletic, and I think maybe more aesthetically pleasing to a casual basketball fan.
Okay.
I think you're going to see some really interesting combinations. Like, we're going to feel the loss of Talon Cooper pretty well for most of the year, but I think Jamari Thomas is a guy that fans are going to latch onto because he's not very big, but he can jump. Like, dude's got some springs. And he also, he did tell me he played a little bit defensive back in high school.
Okay.
So, because I asked, even in the scrimmages, he's picking off passes. He's reading passing lanes really well. He's picking off passes, going the other way, getting the the team in transition. He did a lot of that at Norfolk State. He had one of the best steal rates in all of college basketball.
That's why you play multiple sports, kids.
Yeah, and that's the first thing he said was, I played a little DB in high school. So that's where he gets a lot of that. But he's tough, man. He's got the mentality of a winner, man. He's like, for a guy who's
now, does he have just 1 year?
I think so.
Okay.
Well, I'm not 100% sure, and you go back and check.
I'll go look.
But he's a player that I think fans are going to love. He's got an interesting looking jumper, but it goes in. He was knocking down threes a lot in the scrimmage portion and in the drill portion. His shot looks really good. I think fans are going to love him because of how hard he plays on both sides of the ball. I think he's someone that this fan base can really latch themselves to. And Nick Pringle, not only a strong handshake, really looks really good. On the floor, looks very comfortable. We saw him doing a lot of screening and rim running at Alabama last year because they do play a very unique style basketball. But he made a couple passes from the elbow today that look a lot like the passes Colin Murray-Boyles made. I think you're going to see a lot of lineups that feature him and CMB where they're going to have two playmaking bigs on the floor at the same time. And there's really not a ton of teams in college basketball that give you a unique lineup like that with two bigs that you consider bigs that can play make the way they can off the bounce and out of a set. I thought that was a pretty impressive display that he put on. He had a really good practice today, and Jordan Butler is going to be filling in the Josh Gray role, but not doing the Josh Gray stuff because Josh Gray is a physically imposing human being, and Jordan Butler is 7'1", but has a great looking outside jumper.
You mentioned
he'll stretch the floor a little bit. Won't play inside as much as Josh did last year.
You mentioned, missing Talon Cooper, Michi Johnson's gone, BJ Mack is gone. Just maybe of those three. I know this might be. I hate to put you on the spot like this, but
Sure.
But who's most? I don't want to say easily replaced, but
where they might have upgraded a little bit. And with all due respect to BJ Max, I think BJ had a fantastic year last year. Putting in Nick Pringle at that spot as opposed to BJ, I think, is really going to help this team out a lot. And while BJ was a better outside shooter,
right,
well, the same things that I mentioned, look, a playmaking big is so high in demand in college basketball right now. You're seeing so many teams run offenses through their big men who can handle the ball and pass well in the perimeter. And Nick's going to be able to show a whole lot of that too. And this is a guy that's played in multiple places. He is very well seasoned. It's his last year of college basketball, so he's got that same level of experience that BJ Mack had, but heightened because Nick Pringle just got done playing in a bleeping Final Four a couple months ago, right? Like, he's got some high-level basketball experience, and he has a basketball IQ that really impressed me from just the time talking to him. I was sitting there with Jordan Kay from the state. We were, in part of our little scrum with him, and he was talking about setting Gortat screens, which is a very specific type of screen in basketball where you screen, it's like a regular ball screen, but you turn and you seal the guy who is guarding you, basically creating a wide open lane to the basket. Mastered by, former Washington Wizards big man Marcin Gortat, but that's like a next level type like basketball element, right?
Yeah,
So he learned that at Alabama. He said when he was at Alabama, he really learned the game so much better than he did anywhere else. That I think you have a guy who thinks it at a level that is what is necessary to lead a college basketball team in 2024, 2025. And I think we're going to see a whole lot more of what he can do in this offense as opposed to what he was doing with Nate Oates and Alabama. So just talking to him, I was really impressed with how he thinks the game, and watching him play today of how much more he had to it than what he was able to show at Alabama. I think he's really excited to display that as well.
Nutshell version of the excitement level in Coach Paris right now.
I think it's contained. Coach Paris could have that roster that Kentucky had when they won their first 35 games and went to the Final Four that he ended up beating when he was on the staff at Wisconsin. He could have that roster, which is just freakishly athletic and something we might never see in the sport again, and he'll have the same excitement level. That's just who he is. He's never too high, too low. I think he's still, in his mind, trying to figure out the roles of some of the guys on this team. One of the popular phrases he used when talking about some of them was, it's still really early. It's still really early. But I think he's really confident in what he has, especially when it comes to the variety of styles they can play within the post and some of the experience they have on the perimeter, even if it's not all experience at the University of South Carolina.
We'll have some sound from what Elijah did coming up for you a little bit later on this afternoon. Speaking of basketball, we'll come back on the other side. The voice of the Gamecocks, Derek Scott, going to join us. We'll get his take on some of these newcomers and what he's learning about them as the school year begins here in just a couple of weeks. And Derek's take on two of the big moments in our poll, because he was on the call for both of them. You're listening to the Postgame Show. No better place these days to get your next car financed than at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. Here's why. Not for profit, lower rates, fewer fees. They return earnings back to members. And now is a fantastic time, especially with the rates being where they are across the country, to get, listen, you know, when it's time for a new vehicle, you got to get a new vehicle. I need to wait until, don't do that. Shop the rate right now at Palmetto Citizens. See what they can do for you. They offer the same low rates on all new to 2021 models. Great options for older vehicles as well. And plans that can include no payments for up to 90 days. They can finance over 100% of the retail or purchase price, and they offer additional coverage and insurance options the dealerships simply cannot beat. So before you get that next vehicle, check with Palmetto Citizens and see how you can save. Learn more right now at palmettocitizens.org.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to here that are causing some issues on the roadways. We'll start with one in Bluff Road and Highway 48 at Idlewild Boulevard. Another one on Forum Drive at Town Center Place. One on Hughes East Street at Blossom Street here downtown. Got one on 20 westbound just before the Broad River Road exit 65. Got one on 26 eastbound. That's going to be over at Bush River Road near exit 108A. One on I-126 westbound near Hughes East Street. So a couple places over near Hughes East Street where accidents are causing some issues. Have one on Killian Road at Highway 555 and Farrow Road. One on Park Lane Road near O'Neill Court. And lastly, one on Park Lane Road near Highway 277.
Talking all kinds of stuff on this Tuesday afternoon. Got some Gamecock basketball news, even if football practice starts this week, because Coach Lamont Paris had a little open scrimmage today, introducing some of the newcomers to the Gamecock basketball team. Elijah was down there. We'll talk more about that for you. I actually have some sound in the 5 o'clock hour. And we're also talking about our poll questions this week as we ask you, the listeners, to vote on the best moments in Gamecock sports history this century.
We're giving you a lot of power here with this.
That's
a
right.
whole lot of power at your fingertips.
Yesterday, one of the choices was that amazing game against Duke in the 2017 NCAA tournament. And another today is beating Florida at the Garden to advance to the Final Four in that same tournament. And a man who brought really all of the necessary arrangements to make that happen in his first full season as Carolina's play-by-play man is our next guest. He is the voice of the Gamecocks, Derek Scott. How are you?
Jay, I'm good. How have you been?
I'm well, sir. Thank you. I'd like the Braves to be playing better, but other than that, I'm all right.
Yeah, Elijah and I already had our gripe session about the Reds, so we won't really tolerate any of your complaining.
Yeah, Jay gets to complain about a team that's well over 500. So
Right. That's what I'm saying. Other than the fact that the Reds beat them in 2 straight last week, there's nothing else about that I can take any solace.
It was technically a sweep since they didn't get the other 2 in. So
I'm going to hang the banner right now.
There you go. There you go.
I'll do it.
No, if I'm not mistaken, seriously, the 16-17 season was your first full year as the voice, yes?
That is correct. Yes, indeed. It was Andy and I used to joke that his first full year was baseball's first national championship.
Right.
My first full year was basketball to the Final Four. So we just think they should fire the play-by-play guy every year and take the chance
and see what happens.
Luck.
Eventually, everybody will win something. That's not a bad piece of logic. About those, before we talk about this year's team and just a few other quick things, including your thoughts on Paul Maneri, because I don't think we've spoken to you since he has officially been hired. I've said before, Derek, that 20 minutes, the second half against Duke, and as you know, I'm an old dude. I've been around here a while. That's the best 20 minutes of basketball I've ever seen a team representing the University of South Carolina play. I still to this day don't know where it came from. I want you to take us back, you and Casey up there courtside in Greenville, because I got to think, with Casey's experience especially, that he might have been thinking the same thing.
You know, it's funny. I remember Casey always tends to keep a cool head when things aren't going well. And, you felt like first half was a little bit of a, hey, are we hanging on for dear life here? You know, what's this going to shape up like? But he seemed to be, he had all the confidence and all the faith in the world of how that was going to turn out. And then afterwards, everybody's celebrating and you're thinking to yourself, there's no way you saw that coming. And even he acknowledged, well, I didn't see that coming. But no, it was an amazing, you're right. It was a half of basketball that would be hard to top in how well South Carolina executed in that contest and just, did all the things at the offensive end that you could dream of whilst continuing to play the kind of lockdown defense that bunch was known for. And it was an amazing journey. And, the fact that it was going on in Greenville, I just remember post-game, you're able to head home. And so I'm driving back from Greenville back to Columbia, and it's late by the time we wrap up post-game and everything else going on at the arena. and it's just you're no interest at all in going to sleep at that point, and it's late enough in the evening, as you remember how late that game was and everything, that you might normally be worried about keeping your eyes open on that that drive home. Instead, I just felt like I was bouncing off the walls of the car with someone else's vehicle with me at that point. So.
And then, of course, the run gets to continue at the world's most famous arena. He beat a really good Baylor team. And then the moment that we have nominated today on our Twitter poll at 107.5 The Game, don't forget to vote, is beating Florida that next game, the Elite Eight, that Sunday, I believe, to punch the ticket to the Final Four. And that was a Florida team that you split with in the regular season with two completely different games, right? An absolute rock fight here at CLA, and then Florida got you by double digits down in Florida. What are your memories of that game with the vibe and feel you had? Because that was a pretty tight game throughout until South Carolina just got the stops needed to win it.
Yeah, those two teams were matched up really, really equally. And all three games felt like they were kind of in that rock fight category. So my memories go back to you mentioned that win over Baylor. So that was so much easier than anybody could have ever dreamed. It was really dominant performance by the Gamecocks, and that was the first game of the doubleheader. Well, suddenly we are the Cinderella team. We're the hot commodity. And after I finished up the postgame show and the second game's underway, I felt like I spent the whole night back in the bowels of Madison Square Garden doing radio interviews with national outlets. Everybody wanted to talk about the Gamecocks at that point because suddenly, bang, they're in the Elite Eight, and no one had seen that coming. And so I'm doing a lot of those interviews and not really keeping up with the game. Well, our assistant coaches had stayed to scout that second game. And as it's winding down, as regulation is winding down, it was kind of like, okay, let's get out of here. And I told them, I said, hey, I've got an Uber out here picking me up. You guys just hop in with me. So we go out the side entrance to beat the crowd, hop the car, get back over to the Marriott Marquis. And as we come back in, that hotel, you have to take the elevator from the ground level up to the lobby level, which is a pretty big jump. And when we came into the lobby, obviously there was a Gamecock celebration going on in the lobby area out in the bar, and we see the winning shot go in. And those guys in the moment were really a little bit disappointed because they didn't really want to play Florida again. And they really thought they were getting Wisconsin for that matchup 2 days later. So it was kind of an awkward moment in that the way that Chris Chiozza had that runner to win it for Florida, and you just remember that moment, and then I remember those guys not being necessarily real happy that had gone in, and that it was going to be round 3 with the Gators, but it worked out well. And then the other thing I'll always remember is coming into the arena on that Sunday afternoon, because at that point you're the only game. It's a standalone event. It's not a doubleheader like all the other things you played in the NCAA tournament up to that moment. And the two games that day were North Carolina against Kentucky, whatever regional they were in, and then South Carolina, going against Florida. And I got the MSG really early this time just to soak it all in. And the building's not open to the public, when we come in through the press entrance. And it's the late Carol Sin, who was our radio broadcast engineer. It was me and Carol and Casey. And we come in, and we're sitting there courtside for a bit, and I happen to look over my shoulder, and I realize there's somebody that's already seated in the first row of seats kind of behind us, but down towards the other end of the court. And I'm thinking, okay, who's in here this early? It's not open yet. And I look over, and I realize it's Darius Rucker and his son. Imagine that he had some special access. And he was also as excited as we were that he had come in that much earlier ahead of game time. And he and Jack were there, and they were chomping at the bit too. And then obviously the rest of things went, amazingly well that evening. And you get on the bus and get back out to the airport and come home, and they had the amazing celebration back at CLA that night. It was a pretty special day.
Yeah, that's good. That's good inside baseball on the coaches, like going instead of not worrying about it. You're like, oh, we've seen that, because it is. The familiarity, doesn't often breed. Not that they were scared, but That's an interesting point, Derek. They're like, man, one rock fight and one not so good one. What do we do this time? But it worked out.
Yeah, there's always matchups that you feel better or worse about, depending on who your potential opponents are. Coaches never admit it to the media, but in private, you can tell, and they were pretty open about the fact that they felt better about the matchup with Wisconsin than they did about the Gators. And I've told LP that before, and he didn't like hearing that at all because he thought there was no way we were getting past the Badgers in that moment. So.
That's a good story. That's the first time I've heard you say that. You've not. That's a new one for me. But this is why we did it. This is why you're on in the summer to talk basketball or something like this. And I'm glad we're doing this poll question for folks. Can Elijah and I impose upon you to hang tight, because I do want to talk about what happened today down at the Coliseum and a little bit on some new baseball things. You got a couple minutes?
Sure.
All right, good deal. All right, the voice of the Gamecocks, Derek Scott, hanging over as the postgame show rolls on. That's good stuff. Welcome back in. Post-game show rolling on this Tuesday afternoon. Headlines of the day coming up and more sound from what Elijah did. We'll also have more on our poll question in the 5 o'clock hour, so a lot to do. Speaking of that, Elijah, you and I were talking as we welcome Derek Scott back in, too, hanging out with us for a few more minutes. You were down at the Coliseum today, and one of the things you mentioned, you think maybe this ball club's going to be a little more, I think you said, aesthetically pleasing to the fan eye this coming season.
Yes, I think they definitely have more athleticism top to bottom by a pretty solid margin. Now, whether or not that translates to being better as a basketball team still remains to be seen. There's still a lot of gelling that needs to be done, some fundamentals that need to be honed in on. It's a July practice, so I saw my fair share of drop passes and missed dunks, but also at the same time, you saw what some of the athleticism and what the ceiling is for a lot of these players, especially a lot of the newcomers like Jamari Thomas and Nick Pringle, and that was kind of my big takeaway. And I got to talk to Derek a little bit during the first break about, kind of exchanging notes, and, we were talking about like a lot of the newcomers, and I think that's going to be really where this team is, like where the rubber will meet the road with being better than last year or just being different than last year will come in from how good does Jamari Thomas translate, how good does Nick Pringle's enhanced basketball IQ and his enhanced role on this team as opposed to what it was at Alabama make up for what they lost. And I haven't got to ask Derek what he thinks will happen in that, so that's why we bring him in right now. But Derek, my biggest assessment was this team is more athletic, maybe is more aesthetically pleasing to watch. Time will tell if they are better.
Sure. I don't disagree with the athleticism piece of that. I think going in, that is, the coaches have a confident feeling about that they have taken a step in the right direction from an athleticism standpoint. Now, the question is, can you keep anything resembling the level of toughness that group had last year, the grittiness, which translated at the defensive end of the court. And the ironic part about that is, I think, going into last season, that was the question mark. How tough are we going to be? They thought they were going to shoot the ball probably better than they did, but they did not necessarily anticipate the defensive consistency and the tenaciousness, the grittiness that team displayed being what it was. So, I mean, you just never really know. I think that's probably the lesson to take from it, is what you think you know in preseason is anything but a guarantee once they start playing, real games. But I do agree with you that I think it's going to be a more athletic squad top to bottom, and then we'll figure out, the rest of it. I heard what you were saying earlier as well, in terms of the trade out. You lose BJ and what you gain with Pringle. The one real question I have, and it doesn't necessarily have to fall to Pringle, but, people remember BJ for his ability to step out and shoot the three and space the defense out, which was a big reason why Lamont Paris was so focused on, recruiting him out of the portal initially. But the other thing that he could do, wasn't always something he could do, but he did it better than he probably got credit for, was work in the post with his back to the basket. He had some really big games against bigger defenders, finding ways to score, just being crafty with the basketball. And whether that is now something that falls to Colin or Nick or anybody else, who can develop a low post game? Because it's one thing to say you're an interior player, but not all interior players have a move, have something where they can score with their back to the basket. I see a lot of scouting reports on teams when we get ready to play them, and they'll talk about bigs and those that are, limited in maybe what they can do, the ways they can score. And there's certain phrases that you see in the scouting report that tells you, okay, you don't got to worry about this guy posting up against you and getting touches in that regard. That's not what he does. And that's the thing is, with this bunch, now that BJ's gone, is there somebody that can develop in that regard where they can, get post touches, find ways to score, and as much as anything, then draw the defense to them and create more space for the perimeter players as a result of that, being when the defense has to respect that. At Alabama, Nick's game was setting screens and rolling hard to the basket and being a rim runner in transition. And that's going to be a different structure, he'll have a chance to show that he can be more than that offensively here. And I think that probably was part of the attraction as to how he ended up deciding to come play for South Carolina.
Derek, I got about a minute left for you. Just quick thoughts on Coach Maneri's hire, that staff that he's got and assembled, the roster coming together. But a lot of us didn't see that coming.
Yeah, last time you and I saw each other was at the press conference. You were doing your remote broadcast there, and we were all still trying to figure out. I was getting ready to interview a coach for Gamecocks Plus, and you were going to get him on after the presser. And I think we were all still kind of pinching ourselves on, is this really happening? And it did. And the staff that he's put together is tremendous. I mean, just rock solid. And they are working really, really hard, burning the midnight oil, long days. And it's all about the recruiting side of things and his ability to get people excited about the program in a manner that has, maybe opened up the NIL checkbooks a little more. And that obviously is a huge factor now because everybody's out there competing for kids. And as much as you might feel about your program and pride and facilities and all that, for a lot of guys now, the decision comes down to who's offering me what. That's just a fact.
Yeah. Good luck to you and Elijah with the Reds, and I'll.
What with the trading deadline?
Well, I don't know. With whatever, I don't know. I don't know where y'all are in the wild card standings. I'm just hoping the Braves can hold on.
Out.
Well, that's not so bad. All right, that's not so bad.
Yeah, but there's like 5 teams between us and there, so never mind. It's time to unload.
Not close enough to feel good about it.
I see. Well, there's an hour and 5 minutes left until the trade deadline, so we'll see what happens. In the headlines of today, by the way, I'll give you news on the Braves. Thank you, Derek. Always appreciate you, man. We'll see you soon.
All right, guys.
Good stuff. That's the voice of the Gamecocks, Derek Scott, D. Scott Gamecocks to follow on Twitter. Yes, the Braves are attempting in some ways to get the band back together. Will it help? That'll be part of the headlines for you. Some big news from the Olympics and a lot more from basketball in our poll question. Be right back.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to that are causing some issues on the roadways this afternoon. We'll start up in Bluff Road near Highway 48. An accident over at Idlewild Boulevard has traffic moving pretty slowly through there, as well as one on Forum Drive at Town Center Place. One on 20 westbound before Broad River Road near exit 65. Two on I-26, one eastbound at Bush River Road near exit 108A, and the other westbound at I-20 and exit 107B. We also have an accident on I-126 westbound near Hugh G. Street, one on Coon Road at Western Lane, and lastly, one that's reported on Park Lane Road near O'Neill Court.
It is 5 o'clock news time on this Tuesday. Welcome back in. It's also the final hour of the postgame show alongside Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Appreciate you being with us. We start with a little Gamecock football news. Debo Williams is one of 75 players that have been placed upon the Bronco Nagurski Trophy Watch List. That, according to the Football Writers Association of America, the FWAA, and the Charlotte Touchdown Club present this award annually to the best defender in college football. The watch list includes 22 linebackers. That's what Debo is. 16 defensive ends, 16 safeties, 12 defensive tackles, and 9 cornerbacks. Debo, of course, a redshirt senior, first-team All-SEC performer last season, was named to the second-team preseason All-Conference squad. All right, Elijah, 22 linebackers, 16 defensive ends, 16 safeties, 12 defensive tackles, 9 cornerbacks. Does that give linebackers a better chance to win this award because there's more of them?
Or do you have to stand out that much more?
I don't know.
I think it might be the latter.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to be head and shoulders above.
Well, last year, he was pretty doggone good.
He's the SEC's returning leading tackler.
113 tackles.
That's a lot.
Including 9 for loss. The most recorded by a Gamecock since 2002.
He's had a lot of good players since then.
They have had some really good defenders since then, yes. A lot of dudes that make a lot of money, too, at the next level. He was selected as the 2023 Joe Morrison MVP for defense and is a team captain as well. So, I'm not going to say, congratulations, Debo. There's 75 dudes on the list, but it makes sense that he's one of them.
It can be. It can be. Big congratulations here in about 6 months.
That's right. We'll see. The Atlanta Braves, if you have not yet heard, trying to get the band back together, although they had to part with one of the members of the band to do it. The Braves picked up Jorge Soler. That's right. I was trying to get Elijah to just play the home run on a loop all day, but he didn't want to.
The entire show.
That was going to be the whole show.
Just a loop.
Just play that home run over and over.
The sound of the bat on the ball. Not even just like the call, just the crack of that bat just over and
It's
over
one of the more
over
spectacular home runs that I didn't get to see it in person, obviously. I was watching on television. I wasn't in Houston that night 3 years ago. Almost 3 years ago. But it was a heck of a home run. The Soler Flare.
The Soler Flare.
Yeah. I didn't come up with that. Somebody else did.
Well, whatever a good adjective is to call it, whatever you said, or a verb, sending something into orbit would be a pretty adequate nickname for that play.
But
'cause that ball hadn't landed still.
No, it was a heck of a shot, man. But Jorge Soler is coming back to Atlanta, as is relief pitcher Luke Jackson. The Braves, though, had to send Tyler Matzik, the left-handed reliever, very good one, although he's hurt right now, to San Francisco. The Braves are also sending the Giants one of their top young players, Sabin Ceballos. He's an infielder. Basically, according to Jeff Passan, this was a money dump by the Giants. The Braves will have to pick up all of this year's salary plus the $26 million he is still owed over the course of the next couple of years. I like this, and I don't, and here's why. Number one, when you got Eddie back, Eddie Rosario is back on the team. Now you got Soler back on the team. Luke Jackson's back on the team, and these were all integral parts of winning that world championship. It's 3 years later, but back then the Braves had enough guys that were able to play in the outfield. And I want to be as kind as I possibly can as a fan while also being objective to all of you who are listening that don't like the Braves or just, aren't as big a baseball fan. Jorge Soler has been DHing for the San Francisco Giants because you have DHs now in the National League, as all of you know. The Braves, DH, Marcell Ozuna, who may not be the most popular guy but is having a very good year, was the all-star DH. That's 2 DHs for 1 DH spot. The reason those dudes DH is because they can't play defense. Now, I've said before, when Marcell Ozuna, who I think has played in the field 14 times this year, if Marcell is in left field, imagine a grand piano with like the lid plopped up, right? I don't know what is that called, a lid? I don't know what.
There's probably a more technical term.
There probably is, but whatever.
Those are expensive,
right? Put it out in the middle of left field, and that's about as good a chance as Marcell has of catching a ball as that piano does. If it's hit right to that piano is going to catch the ball. Otherwise, that piano doesn't move real well. Just throwing that out there. Jorge Soler is like having 2 grand pianos out there because he can move. He's just not a very good defender. But he's going to have to play. And now they're saying he might have to play right field because here's the thing. Jared Kelenic plays left field. He's not very good. The Braves right now have a really crappy defensive outfield. So the hope is that by adding Soler and Rosario and what you've already got, and that maybe Matt Olson, who's homered in 2 of his last 3 games, although the Braves got whooped last night, 8-3 in Milwaukee. Maybe things are turning around offensively, but Ozzy's done till at least September. Obviously, Acuna's done. Harris is still on the shelf. Riley has not been as good this year. Again, Olson's not been as good. Murphy and Darno not as good. I mean, it's just, and I know. I got first world problems as a fan. I get it. Braves are still in first place for the wild card. They're like 8 back of the Phillies in the East. 8-ish. I don't know what it is today. It's 8 or I don't know. I try not to look anymore. I get too obsessive, and then I
just don't look at that number. Just look at the number of games you are ahead in the wild.
It's 1.5 as of last night. So that's not very much, sir.
It's still.
But you're still, still in first, and first is better than not. So again, Jorge Soler is a defensive upgrade, but over a guy who's not playing defense.
So I would hope it's an upgrade over a guy that's not playing defense.
So, and maybe I'll give Jorge the benefit of the doubt and say he's like 3 grand pianos in left field.
Because the way it's described, Marcell Ozuna for not playing defense, it can't be someone worse because Marcell Ozuna is the 0th defender.
Right.
And you can't get worse than the 0th.
Yes.
You can be first, second, third. 0th worst defender because he doesn't.
Jorge this season, slash line of 240, 330, 419. So an OPS of under 800. Now, for a slugger, you'd like a few more in the S portion of that. 419 is not terrible.
It's not his standard.
But it needs to be higher. But last week, he did hit the longest measured home run of the Major League season at 478 feet. So he's always a threat. So here's hoping, man. Now, the Braves have less than an hour. The trade deadline is at 6 p.m., so 52 minutes from now. There are whispers the Braves are still in talks for a starting pitcher. I don't know who, but that was something that came by a little while ago, but then nothing really seemed to materialize. I just don't know what the Braves have left to trade. That's the thing.
What assets can you
There's not that many, man. There's really just not that many right now. And you got to keep some of those minor leaguers. You do have a future.
Especially when you get hurt like this every year.
Yeah, I don't. Well, yeah, exactly. And I don't want the Braves to be a team. Look, I realize they've been built to win the World Series for the last few years, and they are. But at some point, that changes, and what you need to do is rebuild through your own system. The Braves do not have a habit of being like I'm just going to say some teams. I don't know who. But the Braves have a long history of building with their own people, right? I mean, look at it right now. Austin Riley, Ronald Acuna, Michael Harris, Ozzie Albies, Max Fried, Spencer Strider. That's a good team that you've built. So we'll see. But anyway, Jorge Soler, 32 years old now. But hey, if he hits more bombs like that and keeps them winning, I'm here.
Yeah.
All good.
That's what he'll be asked to do.
Continuing our integrated media headlines of the day. And if you have not yet heard, tell you what, hold on. I don't want to be a spoiler here. So if you want to watch the NBC coverage of the Olympics later, I'm going to give you like 3 seconds. I don't want you to turn the station off. Just turn your volume down for about the next 90 seconds. All right? And then come back to us. So, okay. Here we go. The United States women's gymnastics team won the gold medal again today. Simone Biles was very good. Jordan Childs, very good. Suni Lee, the former Auburn star, very good. She won the all-around last time. America over Italy and Brazil in the women's gymnastics competition today. I know that's one of the big highlights for people, even like the casual, not so much sports fans, but, it's kind of like figure skating in the Winter Games. This is the one that gets the massive TV draw. It gets Hoda Kotb on the Today Show all stirred up. Hoda's like 60 and she turns into fangirl.
For the gymnastics.
It's really kind of funny to watch, man. I'm like, Hoda, you're on a news show, man. You gotta dial it back a little bit. She gets all giddy. It's funny.
See what sports does to us? Does to everyone.
No, it's great, but you gotta not be that way, right? Like, she's a news lady. Although I think she's more like the entertainment lady on the news, right?
I give her a pass. Yeah.
All right. Savannah's the news lady.
You only get to do this every 4 years.
Yeah.
So.
And I don't watch some of the other ones. Robin Roberts is on Good Morning America, I know, and she's a sports lady.
She is.
She's great. She's probably
if Robin Roberts wanted to be that giddy, I'd let her.
That's cool because she does. Yeah, she was on ESPN forever, and then Disney just moved her to GMA. So that's cool. But anyway, and also the United States men's soccer team. Now remember, it's an under-23 tournament in the Olympics, but the men's soccer team beat Guinea today. Not New Guinea, but the old one. By a count of 3-0. America will advance to the quarterfinals of the Olympic soccer tournament for the first time since 2000 in Sydney. It's been a long time. Been a long time.
That was a very long time.
They played well today. I watched a good portion of that game.
I saw where they won, and I saw they scored early.
They scored.
So the pressure was still kind of on because we have mentioned this in all group sports in the Olympics. Point differential matters in all of them. So the more you could tack on, the better. But you got the first one out of the way to at least avoid the L that would have been crippling. Yeah.
And then they scored again in the middle of this first half and then got to a late insurance goal just to be sure. And I think they will play, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe they will play Morocco on Friday morning in the quarterfinals. So Morocco, of course, regular men's team made the semifinals of the last World Cups. They're really good.
They made a run.
Yeah, they're really good.
That was a fun Cinderella story.
Yeah, that was great.
World Cup. That one was a lot of fun.
That was great. All right, that's our Integrated Media headlines of the day, brought to you by Integrated Media. 803-948-8327 to watch these, world games and pro football and college football and pro baseball and your favorite movies and TV shows. Do it better than ever with Integrated Media. One room, whole house, indoors, outdoors, Wi-Fi that works everywhere, home security, and so much more. Nobody better across the Midlands of South Carolina than our good friends at Integrated Media. Again, 803-948-8327. Get ahead of the football rush. Call Integrated Media today. Elijah was down at Carolina Coliseum for a little basketball preview today. We'll get into some of that for you. And we will come back to today's poll question, some of the best moments in Gamecock sports history this century. You're listening to the Postgame Show. Welcome back into the post-game show on this Tuesday. Excuse me, I'm all choked up still about the Olympics or
Just
the
so
Braves.
emotional.
It's always cool to see gold medals.
Gold medals are cool.
Yeah.
I like winning gold medals. I
The,
like flexing on the rest of the world.
I haven't seen, I just saw the American men's 3x3 basketball team was playing Serbia.
You know who's the leading, or I guess the headliner player on that 3-on-3 team?
I can't remember.
I'm about to say a name that is going to blow your mind. Jimmer Fredette.
Oh, cool.
Jimmer Fredette. The return of Jimmer Mania has reached
Okay.
3-on-3 Olympic basketball.
But only if they
And-
win.
Canyon Berry, former College of Charleston
Yeah,
standout
okay.
turned Florida Gator, who lost to South Carolina in said Elite Eight game that you can vote on if that
Look
is
how it
one of
ties
your
in.
favorite memories. So they are on the same squad.
Look how it ties in quite nicely. But I know the American women today lost to Germany in the 3-on-3.
I'm very unfortunate.
Haley Van Lith
Van Lith.
of Louisville, LSU, now TCU, was on the team. They were up 5-0 and lost like 14-12.
Ooh, that's tough. That's a blown lead.
That's you play 1 point buckets in 3-on-3.
Yep, 1x2s, old school.
So anyway,
That's how you play pickup ball.
yeah.
It's the fun stuff.
But the 5-on-5 teams both won.
Yeah, they kick a whole lot of tail.
Yeah. American men play South Sudan tomorrow. I don't know what time.
Do we know the spread? Because they were a 43.5-point favorite last time and
man.
only won by 1. And we hypothesized last week that the spread would actually go up because we know how this works.
I'll tell you what.
This is the mind of the sports book.
While you are telling
Yes.
people about today's choices in our poll question, I am going to look up tomorrow's line on that game.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. We'll go and give you an update. You still have 7 hours left to vote on this. And these are the greatest moments in Gamecock sports history since the turn of the century. This is poll number 2 yesterday. The Whit Merrifield hit in the first College World Series championship was the winner, so that will be included in our ultimate mega poll on Monday. Today, our options, I call this the Florida region. Second College World Series title, win over Florida that very next year in 2011. Beating Florida in the Swamp in 2010 to win the SEC East and what would be the only SEC East title in South Carolina Gamecock history. Beating Florida in the Elite Eight in 2017, not led by, but featuring Canyon Berry, who was on the 3-on-3 Olympic team. And beating number 5 Tennessee in 2022 with the help of 6 touchdown passes from Spencer Rattler. And a pretty overwhelming favorite here, second College World Series title versus Florida at 42.5%. At 28%, comfortably in second, was Steve Spurrier and the Gamecocks getting it done in the Swamp to secure an SEC East title. And third is the win against Florida in the Elite Eight in 2017 for the men's team's ticket to the Final Four. And at 12.5%, beating number 5 Tennessee in 2022.
Yeah, a little tighter today than some of what we had yesterday.
Yeah, it was a runaway. Whit Merrifield was a runaway yesterday.
Knowing what we believed was going to win, which were the 2 titles, you and I voted for different things.
Yes.
I voted for the Marcus Lattimore game.
Yes. That's a good one.
It was just such a special game. Yeah, look, winning a national championship is winning a national championship.
It is.
You know, if we do this again, maybe we'll just lump all the baseball titles and all the basketball titles into one title thing.
Which one? Yeah, all the championships.
Yeah, just championship.
Or do we? Or
No,
next
we
time
said
do
like we said next year.
non-titles?
Yeah, next year we'll have just like
Plays.
moments. Yeah, just individual plays.
Yeah.
Because that could actually be a whole lot of fun. Maybe if we have time. Well, we don't have time this summer.
See,
we have,
because plays are quick hitting,
yeah.
potentially 5 to 30 seconds of joy, whereas
Well, again-
moments make you feel fuzzy for hours.
Yeah, like the A.
Years.
Sanders punt return in 12, or
Yes.
again Shaw to Ellington. Again, the Camilla 3. You know that. I mean, still, wow. Yeah, Christian Walker home run, things like that. I mean, there's others we can think of, but things like that. So
There's a
yeah,
lot.
we'll have some fun with that.
Just
That's
think,
next year.
We have
So
a
the
whole
committee,
other summer.
the committee has a long time to plan.
See, that's the best thing about these type of very evergreen topics. You can just bag them and save them for later.
All right, I have your line.
All right. And
United States, South Sudan. It is, by the way, while we're on the air tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now, again, for the degenerates out there, they put a line of 43.5 for an exhibition game. Again, if you bet on an exhibition game, you deserve to lose money.
If you win money on an exhibition game, then
You still deserve to lose, but you didn't. Sorry. Sorry.
well, when I win money on this Hall of Fame game tomorrow, who's going to be laughing then?
Is the Hall of Fame game tomorrow?
It's tomorrow. No, just kidding. Thursday. I keep thinking today's Wednesday. It ain't. Thursday. 48
Why is it
hours
so
from now.
early? The NFL doesn't start till middle of September.
But we have what? 3 weeks of preseason.
I don't know.
This is technically
I don't know.
the week before preseason.
I'm not going to
games
watch.
start.
I will watch. I can't. Can I watch less than 0?
0th.
Yeah, it's the 0th game of the year. Can I watch less than 0 of it?
Physically cannot.
All right, because I'm going to watch 0 of it. I'm just going to let you know right now. I don't know who's playing.
Not Caleb Williams. That was announced today. He will not be playing in the Hall of Fame game on Thursday.
I don't care.
He'll take his 0th snap as a Chicago Bears quarterback on Thursday.
I'm trying to figure out if I care less about the Hall of Fame game or the Pro Bowl. And it's a tie.
Wow, how very un-American of you to include ties.
Yeah, but again, if you bet on exhibition games, then you deserve to lose your money. That being said, do you believe this line is higher, lower, the same as the exhibition game, United States men's basketball team versus South Sudan?
I'm going to say, without looking, 45.5.
You'd be wrong. It's lower. It's actually
Lower?
much lower.
Really?
Do you want to guess? What you want to do? Like a little Bob Barker here for just a second?
Yeah. Oh, I'd love
I'm going to give you. I'm going to give you 2 guesses. Then it's lower than the 43.5 of the exhibition game.
Okay.
So you get 2 guesses, and it is a half-point line.
It is probably going to be 33.5 points.
Nope. Lower.
You're kidding.
Pulling a Bob Barker here.
Oh, my God. 29.5.
29.5. Ding, ding, ding.
Wow.
29.5.
I'm going to have to make some phone calls. I'll have to have some money exchange hands here before this game starts tomorrow.
With
because they are going to beat the hell out of it.
an over-under of 191.5.
I ain't touching the total, but I will touch that. That one,
29.5. Now, America just beat Serbia by 26, right? Or 24?
Yes.
26. I think it was 26.
26, yep, because it was tied in the Nikola Jokic minutes. The non-Nikola Jokic minutes were USA 29, Serbia 3, and that's 26 points.
So 29.5 tomorrow.
Oh, boy.
United States, South Sudan.
Oh, buddy.
But is this the day where Steve Kerr begins to, play with the lineup a little bit, put some formations in, start to really look ahead to the medal round?
Oh, he had 2 weeks to do that, buddy.
You win tomorrow, and you're virtually assured of the medal round.
And they're going to win.
And they're going to win.
I don't think they are going to, look, South Sudan getting within 1 point is a great story because of how big an underdog they were.
Right.
And the South Sudan story, if you've not looked it up or have learned anything about it,
it is cool.
It's funded by Luol Deng.
Yeah, read about it.
Right. They've been a country for less than 6 years.
Yeah.
And now here
And there
they
ain't a lot
are.
of good going on in that part of the world right now. It's
Yeah.
very, very war-torn still.
What they represent is awesome. And it's what the Olympics are all about.
Agreed.
That being said, I do not envy what is about to happen to them with the Team USA that has gotten to see them once, play them once, and is playing the way they are. Their only shot is if Joel Embiid plays 30 minutes. Yes, I said it. I'll go there. He was terrible.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to. I'm not sure he's going to play 30 seconds tomorrow night.
He might not. He might be the one that's having to be the...
he might do the full bench thing. So there you go. That's tomorrow at 3 Eastern, USA, South Sudan. All right, we'll come back. Elijah was at Carolina Coliseum, and as part of the drive around the SEC, a little sound from some of the new Gamecocks. It'll be representing men's basketball in the coming school year. You're listening to the Postgame Show.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to that are causing some issues on the roadways this afternoon. We'll start off with some good news. And that's that an accident in Lexington County on 26 westbound at I-20 and exit 107B has been cleared. So traffic's moving a whole lot more smoothly through that area. We still have some active accidents, though, causing some traffic backup. One on US 378 near Pineview Road and Hallbrook Drive. Another one on US 321 at I-20. One on Reimer Pond Road at Longtown Road, one on Coon Road at Western Lane, one on Bickley Road at Broad River Road, and lastly, one on 26 West over near exit 107B. What?
It is drive around the SEC time. Welcome back in. I do have one quick Braves note. Just saw not a trade, a new trade, but the Braves will not, for whatever reasons, don't know more about it, will not be activating Jorge Soler and Luke Jackson in time for tonight's game in Milwaukee. Both arriving today, so maybe they're just letting them, go have a beer in Milwaukee somewhere.
That's the best thing to do in Milwaukee.
I guess so.
I can assume. I've never been.
Or
But
go to like the Laverne and Shirley Museum. Or the Happy Days Museum.
But any place that has their baseball team named after brewing and brewery.
I really want to slide down that thing.
Yes, I want to slide race Bernie the Brewer.
Yeah.
As in,
that would be awesome.
You time him, and then you time me, and I'm going to wipe the floor with that guy.
And the old school logo is still one of the best logos in the history of baseball.
The ball in the mitt?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
And striped jerseys, too. When they do the throwback jerseys at home, those are sexy.
Yeah.
Big fan of those.
I'd also like them to lose tonight, the Milwaukee Brewers.
I would also like the Milwaukee Brewers to lose tonight as well.
Thank you.
Me and you both.
All right, drive around the SEC time now. And Elijah, I'll turn it over to you down at the Coliseum today for, what did they officially call this? Just a meet and greet?
Just an open practice.
Okay.
Yeah, so an open practice. So they did a...
Carolina men's basketball.
Yep, and they did a small practice, I guess, open portion, and then they did some media availability. And originally...
To practice? You got to go practice?
I got to shoot some jumpers.
You said media availability, like available to practice. You're tall.
I'm always available to practice. Never well stretched, but available to practice nonetheless. Something you never lose the jump shot. I still got that sucker. It's still there, even cold. But Lamont actually got to talk. Lamont Paris, head coach for the Gamecocks, got to talk a little bit after practice too. So before getting to talk with some of the newcomers that were made available, Coach Paris was made available, and I was talking in the last hour about the two players I think I was most impressed with that I haven't gotten to see a ton of was Jamari Thomas and then Nick Pringle and how he's going to look within the flow of this offense. And the first thing I got to ask Coach Paris about was Jamari Thomas, what he's bringing on offense, considering you're losing a leader and a floor general in Talon Cooper, but also what does Jamari bring defensively? And this was his answer.
Well, I'll say one thing. Defensively, he's got a knack. We keep talking about it, but he's just got a knack. He's really good at anticipating where the ball's going and getting into passing lanes. But he's explosive as he gets downhill. He's really been cognizant of trying to figure out how that works for him and not step on any toes, but it's time for him to start stepping on the gas pedal a little bit for us and getting into that role. But he can create some stuff downhill. He can make plays. That's probably a real strength of his compared to even some of the guys last year, is the ability to create some stuff downhill. So we need him to try to do that, and he's been good at it.
Good stuff. You mentioned, what some of the things that you're looking for there in terms of what this team can be. I'm curious, just when you, not about any one particular player right now, but I was just going over the roster and I was thinking back to Morris Ugasok, who did get some nice opportunities earlier in the season when CMB was down. He got some first half minutes that showed they liked him. They obviously accelerated his career path here at Carolina. I mean this both seriously and funny at the same time. Is he bigger? Because, last year he was still, I think they said he weighed like 160, but I'm not sure that he did.
No, it was funny. I was talking with Alan Cole from Gamecock Scooper because we're looking at these guys on the floor for the first time since we saw them in March.
Yeah.
And I didn't notice Morris getting that much bigger, but one who did, who Alan and I both kind of looked at each other like, Jacoby Wright got a little bigger.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he looks like he's put on some muscle, like up in his shoulders and traps areas. Like, I was like, wow, like Jacoby Wright looks like he's put on a little muscle from the end of the season until now. But admittedly, didn't see a ton of addition in terms of muscle mass on Morris.
Okay. But I think he's going to be able.
He can still do it though.
Yeah, I want to see what's his role going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because they like him.
And here's the thing too. I think Lamont's wanting him to be a little more vocal. There was a point in practice where Collins got the ball down low, and a double team comes, and Colin ends up throwing the ball away, but in his blind side is Morris in the corner, the far corner.
Right.
And Morris is open. And Colin can make the pass. He just didn't see the pass.
Right.
And he tried to make the pass over to the break on the wing and ends up getting picked off or whatever. And Coach Paris stops the play and is like, you want the ball? Like, you're open. You want the ball? Let him know. Like, let him know a little bit. You want somebody else to be a little more vocal. So there's still a little bit of working that dog in him a little bit to where, hey, someone comes, the double comes from your side of the floor and you're open. Let the guys know. We'll get you the ball. And because he's a really good shooter off the catch. And he could really beat teams that way. So I think there was definitely a moment where, a learning curve where he's still making, right? But if he's able to make that by the time the season comes around, he's going to be really useful for him.
Yeah. What else you got?
So I also got to ask Coach Paris about the advantage of having two playmaking bigs because, again, when talking about Nick Pringle, and Derek touched on it too, his role at Alabama was screening and rim running, right? He maybe didn't get to do as much, have offense flow through him as much as he's going to whenever he's here. Colin Murray-Boyles already last year really established himself as a big that you can run your offense through and have him being one of your primary ball handling playmakers. Well, now with Nick Pringle, because I think today he showed he could do that really well. He made some really nice passes and was really in control of the offense whenever he was handling it 15 to 30 feet away from the basket. I did ask Coach Paris about what the advantage would be to having two of those guys on the floor at the same time.
Skilled bigs, I think people oftentimes think if you don't shoot the three that you're not a skilled big, and I'd be here to argue that, and that's part of it, is being able to shoot but just being comfortable catching the ball out there, making a dribble, reading a screening situation and throwing it to one of the two guys that ends up being open. It's easy for us to sit here and say, and I think people can do it. Hindsight's 20/20. In the aftermath, they can look back and say, I should have done that. But to do it when it's coming at you full speed, those guys have been able to do that so far this year. And I think it makes everybody. My aspiration is that all five guys on the floor at all times are a real threat to do something that helps us on the offensive end. And I think we have a team where I feel comfortable saying that about all the guys that we have, including all of our bigs.
With a new season comes a different set of expectations, accelerated expectations, I think, and that's part of the history here at South Carolina. As you mentioned, they could be more aesthetically pleasing, and Lamont kind of hints at some of that in terms of what he wants from all five guys. You want to listen. I know college is not the NBA in terms of the entertainment value per se, but it is a ticket buying product, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And, while I guess if you have a bunch of rock fights and win, that can fill the gym up. Sometimes you'd like to have something that's a little more enjoyable, right?
Winning games in the 50s are still wins, but ask Virginia fans exactly how excited they are to watch that team on any.
Yeah, and so I guess what I'm leading up to is in year 3 of the Lamont era and having made the tournament, doing well in the portal. How does Lamont blend the style he wants to play? And not sacrifice anything that he might think. Look, you're gonna win first. I guess that's the point, right? But you want to do it with a certain, dare I say, flair. Is that fair?
If you have an option to pick one or the other.
Yeah.
I think you're
Yeah, you
definitely
always want to win. I mean, again, if you win rock fights or lose with flair, well, you
And here's the thing, with a little bit of flair, too, it can provide you some flexibility. Having all 5 guys on the floor, that can put the ball on the floor.
Right.
And can pass, or threats to shoot. So I want to say that I think it was College Basketball Analytics said that 100% of Nick Pringle's field goal attempts last year were at the rim.
Or you mentioned that, yeah,
Every
when he transferred
single
in.
one. But he shows a really good shooting stroke. Now, a lot of that was not in the scrimmage portion. It was a lot of like the drills that they were running. But he did look comfortable doing it. There, you'll see some bigs in your career covering basketball of guys who look like they would rather be doing quite literally anything else. Would rather be doing quantum physics homework than shooting outside of 15 feet. But he looks comfortable doing it. A lot, like him and Jordan Butler both look comfortable taking those shots and doing so in decent rhythm. And that's aesthetically pleasing, right? It also is an incredible advantage when you're a threat to do that and teams have to guard you out there and you have 4 guys that are really smart, know what to do without the ball. So not only does it become aesthetically pleasing, it becomes a significant advantage.
Yeah. It'll be fun to watch. I want to get one more that we'll have on the other side. Are we going to continue the drive around the SEC, which we're in right now? And how do I word this properly for what's to come? One SEC fan base is about to enjoy the old saying, "You are what you eat." I think that's the best way to say it. I hope so. I'll try to explain when the postgame show returns. All right, welcome back in. We're going to continue the drive around the SEC on this Tuesday. We'll have our updated poll results in just a bit. You've got until around midnight tonight to vote day 2 of 4 on Gamecock sports history best moments this century.
You have a smidge over 6 hours.
That's right.
If the math is correct, which it is, because I did it.
Yeah, you've been voting so far on 8 different events. There will be 8 more to come. So if you didn't see one yet, and I'll have Elijah preview tomorrow's voting slate as well.
That's right. If you didn't see yours, it might be tomorrow or Thursday.
Yeah, and it might not be there. Again, there's a couple. We had a caller yesterday about the Miami Miracle in 2002. Again, I've mentioned the Christian Walker home run in 2010. There's a few others here or there. The moments, things. Can't put. It's only got 16 slots.
Off air and off platform, I was told I was an idiot for not including 2012 Ace Sanders' kick return or punt return, and that's great. But you're going to take off a championship for it?
Yeah. Well, can't fit them all. Can't fit them all. Can't fit them all. But we can fit all the championships.
And they tried to rebuke it with, here's 20 of the best Gamecock moments. I'm like, no. The exercise is 16.
Yeah.
If I had to cut it to 16, you have to cut it to 16 too.
Right. Yeah. Which 4 are they going to cut?
Yeah. Yeah. That's now you got to cut out 4.
Yeah.
I don't call you an idiot for all 4 that you leave out.
That's right. Meanwhile, this is cool. We mentioned it earlier if you heard it, but if you haven't, Arkansas, University of, SEC member, and Tyson Foods, big partners. Tyson Chicken, of course, is headquartered out in Northwest Arkansas. And a lot of the Tyson folk, including Razorback alum and CEO John Tyson, they're tight. John Tyson basically helped John Calipari quit his job and take a new job.
Basically talked him into it.
That's right. And now to celebrate the partnership that was already strong between Tyson Chicken and University of Arkansas. This is a true story. I'm not making this up. Tyson is releasing this week Razorback nuggets. Now, you may say, oh, Jay, are they taking like wild boar and cutting it into nuggets? No. Many of you that have kids might have had like the dinosaur shapes or sometimes other shapes, maybe for a movie or something through the years, with your kids' chicken nuggets. Or maybe you just like them yourself. I got to say, the Tyson chicken fries are pretty good. When my kids, back in the day, we'd bake a few of those,
I love chicken fries.
You put a few extra on the pan for yourself.
Oh, certainly. Especially get them nice and crispy.
Yeah.
I bet those bad boys are great in an air fryer.
They are actually. I can speak firsthand.
Haven't put them in an air fryer, but I'm just
they're
spitballing here.
They're perfectly
fantastic.
fine. No, they are. But this week they will be releasing Tyson Razorback nuggets. It's your chicken nugget, but it's in the shape of the Razorback, logo that you see on the side of their helmet. That's been there since the 60s or whatever. Y'all all kind of know what that looks like. They will be sold primarily in Arkansas and southern Missouri. I guess there's a lot of Arkansas fans that just maybe go right over the border. I'm sure the Missouri folks don't like that, but there's a lot of Arkansas folk up that way. Says Hunter Yurachek, the AD at Arkansas. When Arkansas fans cheer on our teams this season, they will be inspired by their passion for the Hogs and fueled by the new Tyson Razorback Nuggets. With these 2 iconic Arkansas brands teaming up, Razorback Nation will be primed and ready to call the Hogs from pregame to postgame while showing their loyal support of our more than 460 Razorback student athletes. So I guess some of this money will be going to either the school or NIL. No word yet, as we said, on any other schools having nuggets made in the shape of their mascot or logo. So probably not. Just
the possibilities of things we can do with this whenever they play South Carolina in any sport are endless. Well, I will eat one hog nugget for every point South Carolina basketball men and women score against them.
And by the way, it does say Woo Pig Suey right where you rip the bag open at the top.
You have to yell it when you open it too. It's on the instructions on the back.
I was going to
read air fryer and oven instructions.
I was going to read from the Tyson Foods release of this product, and it was so over the top. I had to go to a news story instead.
Look, if you're not going over the top with something like this, you're wasting your time. You go hard or you don't go at all.
Yeah. So
That's a life motto.
Now I guess we need Bojangles or maybe locally, Bernie's or the Thicket to give us something.
Oh, yes.
Gamecock related.
Gamecock shaped or related, something.
Yeah. I tell you what,
That's a
Bojangles is in Charlotte. So Bernie, you do it. The Williams is at the Thicket. Y'all do it. The Rush's family. Y'all are local. Y'all figure something out.
It can be done.
Yeah.
I believe in all of them.
Y'all figure something out. All right. Updated poll results and what you'll be voting on tomorrow, sir.
That's right. Updated poll results as of now. Again, you have 5 or 6 hours and 6 minutes to vote on this. But 42.5% are voting the second College World Series title over Florida. 27.9% beating Florida in the Swamp in 2010 to secure the program's only SEC East title. 17% vote for the win against Florida at Madison Square Garden in 2017 to secure their only trip to the men's Final Four in program history. And 12.6% voted on beating number 5 Tennessee in 2022. And tomorrow you'll be voting on Dawn's third championship with South Carolina this past year against Iowa, beating Caitlin Clark in Cleveland.
Undefeated
national championship. That will go up against the football win against Alabama.
Okay.
The Jadeveon Clowney play where he decapitates a Michigan running back.
All right.
And Camila Cardoso's buzzer beater to secure the undefeated season last year in the SEC tournament against Tennessee.
All right. Good stuff. That's all coming up tomorrow. But it looks like 2 baseball titles have made it into the finals. We'll see. Y'all still have time to change the outcome. Good stuff today. Thanks to Ben and Derek. We'll see you tomorrow.